Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. A quick reminder to you all that we are coming up to the Akashic Abundance class. This is a class where I am going to help you all to deepen your own Akashic Records practice. And we're using money as the topic because money is something that we all need and that we all have a relationship to. But the focus is going to be about how to do the deconstruction and construction work that I talk about in a different episode. I will pop in the show notes the link to an episode on deconstruction and construction work and an episode that I've done specifically on the Akashic Abundance class. That one is going to start on the 3rd of June at 6 p.m. UK time. It's going to be 3 sessions and you can get signed up for that over on my website, which I'll also put a link in the show notes for. Today's episode is going to be about how to tell the difference between guides, beings, energies that are of the evolutionary stream or of the light and those that aren't. Now, if you want to believe that you can just open up to channel and that everything that you're going to connect into is going to be of the light, that is your prerogative. I am not telling anybody what to believe. But in my experience and in traditional esoteric training and studies, it has always been the case that we have to be aware of the fact that when we open ourselves up to start connecting to different energies, there are energies, beings who are of the evolutionary stream and beings, energies that are of the de-evolutionary stream. And I'm doing this episode so that if you are of that understanding, that you can help yourself whilst connecting to these things in a way that is educated. So my intention is never to create fear or to stop anybody on their spiritual path, not at all. I want to empower you all. I want to help you all as best as I can on your spiritual journey. But please do it in a way that is educated and informed. That way, if you do come across some of these beings who are not of that stream, so some of the devolutionary beings, you can deal with it and you can move on. A lot of people will get caught in many, many hours of their life communicating with, connecting to beings who are of the devolutionary stream or just trickster beings, beings who do not want to help you evolve. And what can often happen in these cases is because that's happened, they think they've done something wrong. They think that they are a bad person and they will stop their spiritual development. So the very first thing I want you all to know is that it is completely normal on your spiritual path when you start connecting into these things, that you are going to connect into both. And the reason for this is because the astral plane, which is where you first usually connect into during this process, is a realm which is designed to help you train your discernment. And your discernment is that question of, is this evolutionary or is this devolutionary? So ultimately what you want to do is you want to work on developing and strengthening that discernment, that resonance. Does this resonate with me? Okay. Now, a lot of people who I work with, and we definitely have this conversation in the membership, is, so how do I know? And ultimately, it's that feeling of resonance. Ultimately, it's a question for your discernment. But what I wanted to do with today's episode is just give you some telltale signs of how to tell if the being or the energy is of the evolutionary or devolutionary stream to help you navigate your way. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not, okay, it ticks that box, therefore I'm going to override my own discernment and my own resonance. Your own resonance is what matters the most, okay? What I'm going to talk about today are merely guidelines and things for you to think about when you are connecting into different energies and beings on your journey. I don't want anyone to sit there and think, Susie said that because of this, it was a being of the evolutionary stream, therefore I'm going to go with it, and override your own system. Okay, these are only guidelines, these are only pointers, and it's very, very important that you see them as such. Now, before I get into the different signs, I really want to emphasize how important critical thinking is. on your spiritual journey. So I know a lot of the time people come into their spiritual development, their studies, and they just want to leave critical thinking at the door. Now, for various different reasons, critical thinking is something that is diminishing in our society as a whole. And that's going to be very detrimental to society as a whole. But I'm not here to talk about that today. What I'm here to talk about is you need to take this critical thinking into your spiritual development. And what I mean by that is, for example, you are opening to channel, you're connecting to a being or an energy that you've never connected to before. Okay. Why would you take what that being or that energy is telling you as absolute truth? If you were in your physical reality and you met somebody on a park bench, you were sat having a coffee, and they started to give you advice about your life, you would be a little bit hesitant. It may be that the advice is very good and very helpful, and that's great, but you would still have a hesitancy. You would still have that rational, critical thinking brain functioning and operating in a way that is going to help you discern whether or not the information that the person on the park bench is giving you is for you, and if it's helpful. And if it is, that's great. And if it isn't, you just leave it to the side and get on with your day. For some reason, when people start to do this work in the spiritual world and they start to connect to these different planes, they don't seem to want to have the same level of critical thinking and the same level of questioning. And I just want to remind everybody it's important to do that. Okay? It's completely okay. And I can promise you, no true guide is ever going to be offended if you're a little bit hesitant, if you're questioning things, if you're asking them to explain things in more detail. Okay? So just think of, how would I act in a normal everyday scenario in my physical reality? I'm going to take that level of critical thinking and analysis into my spiritual practice. I'm not just going to open up and allow everything to come in and influence me. Okay, now that's all out of the way, let's look at these differences, these signs that you can use as a guide to whether or not the beings and energies that you're connecting into on your spiritual path are evolutionary or de-evolutionary. So, number one is, I think, probably the most obvious of all of them, and it's this air of superiority. So beings of the evolutionary stream, whether you want to call them angels, light beings, higher dimensional energies, I don't mind. But a being of the evolutionary stream is going to treat you as an equal. Okay? Beings of the evolutionary stream have so much time and respect and empathy and kindness for a soul who has chosen to take a human incarnation. They are going to treat you as an absolute equal because they know ultimately that you are. On the opposite side of this, beings of the devolutionary stream are going to give this air of superiority. So you are less than because you chose a human incarnation, and that they need to be worshipped or they need to be put upon a pedestal. A being that is truly of the evolutionary stream is never going to make you feel that you need to put them onto a pedestal. The second point that goes hand in hand with that one really is the being or energy giving you information to instruct you, to tell you to do things? Or are they giving you information as guidance that is very respectful of your sovereignty and your free will? Beings of the evolutionary stream are going to be very respectful of your ability to make choices and your decisions. They will give guidance. They will try and point you in the right direction, but ultimately they will leave that final decision to you. Beings of the devolutionary stream, on the other hand, and especially trickster beings, love to tell you what to do. The third point that I want to talk about is the being or energy promoting internal or external spiritualization? Okay. What I mean by that is beings of the evolutionary stream are going to remind you of the power of your internal technology, the power of your intuition, the power of your clairsenses, that you have everything that you need within you to develop, that your soul brought everything through with you in this lifetime that it needs for this lifetime. Beings of the de-evolutionary stream, on the other hand, are going to tell you that you need something outside of you to continue on with your evolution. Perhaps you need to have DNA manipulated. Perhaps you need to put a chip in your head. Perhaps you need to outsource your spiritual development to somebody else. Those beings of the evolutionary stream, they are going to promote and remind you of your internal power. Again, they will guide, they will assist, they will help you, but they are not going to say, and you're just this stupid little human that can't do this by yourself. You need to go outside of yourself. Something else that I see quite a lot with people when they are communicating with different beings is this conversation around, is Earth a school or is Earth a prison planet? Okay, now let's look at those in terms of, from an energetic perspective, how they make someone feel. And does it sound evolutionary or devolutionary? Okay, so if you have a being who is telling you that Earth is a school, that yes, it's hard, yes, there's suffering, yes, there's pain, yes, there's inequality, but ultimately it's all for your soul's evolution, and it's something that you can graduate out of. It isn't something that you have to continue on for the eternity of your soul. Feel into how uplifting, how empowering, how helpful that information is, and compare it to the conversation around, it's a prison planet. There's no escape. You're shackled to the earth, and that you're trapped and you're helpless and there's nothing you can do because you don't have a say. Okay? So yes, seeing Earth as a school or prison planet can be based on certain outlooks, certain perspectives, certain practices and paths. Okay? And you can choose to believe what you want to believe. But what you have to understand is that we need to look into the energy behind certain things that these beings or energies are telling us in respect of, do I feel empowered? Do I feel sovereign? Do I feel like I can evolve and grow? Or do I feel like I'm going into a state of contraction? Do I feel like I have to give everything up because there's no point anyway? Number 5 is following on from that. How does the communication make you feel? Okay, when you're connecting into beings of the higher evolutionary stream, you're going to feel uplifted, you're going to feel expansive, you're going to feel unconditional love. One of the first things that happens with people who come and do the Akashic Records training with me is when they first start connecting into their Akashic Records, they're overwhelmed just by the amount of unconditional love that they're receiving. So does communicating with this being, energy, entity, does it feel like that? Or does it make you feel drained? Does it make you feel contracted? Does it maybe make you feel cold and uncomfortable and that there's something just not quite right? Your body is part of your internal technology. Your body is going to react to the different energies in different ways. So paying attention to how it's reacting is very important and very helpful. The last thing that I want to look at is when you've had these conversations, you've connected to these energies and you've taken their advice, how is your life bearing out? Because a lot of the time, when you're connecting into these beings of the devolutionary stream, you can be doing what they're telling you to do, but it's not bearing fruit. So you're not seeing any results from that. Okay? When you connect to beings of the evolutionary stream and they give you guidance and you then take steps in alignment to that guidance, using your free will to choose to do so, you'll often find that that bears fruits. It may not be immediate, but there will definitely be a bearing of fruits. So take a look at your life and what's going on within your life. Has it become more chaotic? Has it become more confusing? Or has it become that you are feeling inspired, you are feeling like your intuition is nice and strong and that you're able to take steps and that those steps that you're taking are moving you more into alignment with your soul? Ultimately, the beings of the devolutionary stream are talking to your ego. They are going to tell you things that increase your sense of separateness, okay? And beings of the evolutionary stream are going to tell you things to help you from a soul level perspective. So some beings are going to talk to your ego They're going to be of the de-evolutionary stream. Some beings are going to talk to your soul, and they're going to help you with that internal navigation system. They're going to be of the evolutionary stream. I hope that you have found this episode helpful. I hope it's given you a little bit of an overview. I will reiterate before I go, ultimately, go with what resonates with you. Okay? If you feel like you're connecting into a being and your internal navigation system is saying this is good, this is evolutionary, this being is going to help me, go with that over anything I've said today. But I just wanted to help because I get lots of people reaching out to me saying, okay, I understand that there are these two different streams. How can I tell? And I hope that today's episode has given you a little bit of a steer and a little bit of information to help you understand and navigate when you are connecting into things. The very last thing that I want is anyone to stop doing their spiritual practice or their development because they're scared. There's no need to be scared, okay? And if you like these types of conversations, do consider joining the membership because I have done a 5-part series in the membership all about the astral realm. If you're someone who's connecting into that realm, it's very important that you understand it, that you understand the beings that are in there, and also how to move past that astral plane and into the higher spiritual realms. I hope you found this episode useful, and I look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode.